street boy stole from Black Billionaire's wallet, not knowing he was his real father. Security, get this street urchin out of my office. Now, before you throw me out, Mr. Townsend, you might want to check your wallet, the one I just returned to your secretary. The tension in the executive suite of Townsend Enterprises froze everyone in place. 3 security guards hesitated mid-step. Elaine, the executive assistant who had ushered in the disheveled young man just moments before, stood wide-eyed behind her desk. And Harrison Townsend, one of America's few black billionaires, a man who had built an empire from nothing, stared at the boy with narrowed eyes. The young man, no more than 17, with worn clothes that hung from his thin frame, stood tall despite the circumstances. His hands trembled slightly at his sides, but his gaze remained steady, locked with Harrison's. "What did you just say?" Harrison's deep voice cut through the silence. "I said check your wallet, sir. The one I lifted from your coat at the charity gala last night. I'm returning it." Harrison's hand instinctively went to his inner jacket pocket. Empty. He glanced at Elaine, who nervously held up a black leather wallet. He came in asking to see you specifically, Mr. Townsend. Said it was about last night's event." Harrison's expression darkened as he stepped toward the young man. "You admit to stealing from me, and then walk into my building past security to brag about it?" The boy's confidence wavered for just a moment. "No, sir, I came to return it, and to tell you something I found inside." Harrison reached for the intercom. "This is ridiculous. I'm calling the police." "The photograph," the boy said quickly. "The one behind your driver's license. The woman is Angela Davis, isn't she? My mother." Harrison's finger froze above the button. His face, usually an unreadable mask crafted through decades of high-stakes business negotiations, suddenly betrayed a flash of shock that everyone in the room could see. "Everyone out," he ordered, his voice barely controlled. "Except you." He pointed at the young man. "But let's go back to how this all started. It was just 12 hours earlier when Marcus Johnson was doing what he'd become exceptionally good at over his 17 years of life, surviving." The grand ballroom of the Westfield Hotel glittered with wealth and privilege. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across a sea of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. It was the annual Children's Hospital Benefit Gala, where Detroit's elite gathered to write tax-deductible checks and be seen doing so. Marcus moved through the crowd with practiced invisibility. He wore a white server's jacket he'd found in the hotel laundry, carried a tray of empty champagne flutes he'd collected from a busing station, and kept his eyes lowered, the perfect disguise. This wasn't his first time infiltrating such an event. When you lived on the streets, you learned to spot opportunity. Tonight's opportunity was the distracted wealthy, their pockets and purses ripe for quick, careful hands. "Another successful year," a woman in diamonds said, clutching her husband's arm. "Harrison's foundation has outdone itself again." Marcus's ears perked up at the name. Harrison Townsend was something of a legend in Detroit, a hometown success story who'd built Townsend Enterprises from a small tech startup in the 1980s to a global technology corporation. Unlike many who found wealth and left, Townsend had stayed, pouring millions back into the city. Marcus spotted him then, standing near the stage, tall, distinguished in his 60s, with closely cropped silver hair and a presence that commanded the room without effort. People orbited him like planets around a sun, each waiting for a moment of his attention. Harrison interrupted, pressing a button on his desk. "Get this street urchin out of my office. Now." And that brings us back to where we began. In Harrison's now empty office, the billionaire and the boy stood facing each other across a vast expanse of expensive carpet. Through the windows behind Harrison, the Detroit skyline stood as a silent witness to the moment. "How do you know about that photograph?" Harrison finally asked, his voice carefully controlled. "And what game are you playing?" "No game, sir," Marcus replied. "Angela Davis was my mother." Harrison's composure slipped. He reached for his chair and lowered himself into it. "Your mother," he repeated. "Angela is your mother." "Was," Marcus corrected. "She died 5 years ago, breast cancer." Harrison closed his eyes briefly, pain crossing his features. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I lost touch with her years ago." "When was the last time you saw her?" Marcus asked. 1988, Harrison answered, eyes still on the photograph he now held in his hands. "Shortly after this was taken," Marcus calculated quickly. "I was born in 1989. The implication hung in the air between them. Harrison looked up sharply. "Are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Marcus interrupted. "I'm just stating facts. My mother told me my father was dead, but she kept certain things from me, apparently." Harrison studied Marcus's face with new intensity, looking for resemblances for confirmation of the impossible thought forming in his mind. "What was your mother's full name?" he asked. Angela Davis Johnson. Harrison nodded slowly. She always admired Angela Davis, the activist. We used to attend rallies together in the early days. I know, she named me after her brother, Marcus Garvey Johnson. She had a thing for revolutionary names. A ghost of a smile touched Harrison's lips. She certainly did. He paused, then asked, "Why did you steal my wallet only to return it?" Marcus straightened. "I didn't know it was yours specifically, not until I looked inside. I needed money. For what? Drugs." Harrison's tone hardened. "For a place to sleep," Marcus shot back. "The shelter where I stay sometimes is closed for renovations. It's winter, Mr. Townsend. I don't do drugs, never have." Harrison studied him for a long moment. "And once you saw the photograph, you could have taken the money and thrown the wallet away." "I considered it," Marcus admitted. "But I've spent 5 years wondering about my family. My mother never had siblings. Her parents died before I was born. When she passed, I had no one. I've been on my own since I was 12. Harrison's expression changed, a dawning horror crossing his features. 12. The state didn't foster care for a few months, Marcus said with a shrug. "It didn't work out. I've managed. By stealing. Sometimes," Marcus didn't flinch. "By working when I can get work, by doing what I have to do." Harrison stood suddenly and walked to the window, turning his back to Marcus. The city stretched out before him, his city in many ways. He'd invested millions in its revival, in creating opportunities, in rebuilding neighborhoods. "I loved your mother," he said finally, so quietly Marcus almost didn't hear him. "She was," he trailed off, searching for words. "Everything," Marcus supplied. "She was everything to me." Harrison turned back. "We met when I was starting my first company." She was working as a secretary in the same building. That's what they called administrative assistants back then. It was 1987. I had nothing but ambition and a computer science degree. She believed in me when no one else did. "What happened?" Marcus asked. Harrison's expression closed again. "Life happened. I got an investor who didn't approve of the relationship. It was a different time. Angela and we decided it was better to part ways. I had my company to think about." "You chose your company over her," Marcus stated flatly. "It wasn't that simple." Harrison returned to his desk. "There were factors you couldn't understand. Try me." Harrison studied the young man before him. "How old are you, Marcus?" 17. 17, Harrison repeated softly. "Born in 1989, you said." Marcus watched as the older man did the math, saw the moment when realization fully dawned. "Did she ever?" Harrison began, then stopped, reformulated his question. "Did Angela ever tell you anything about your father, besides that he was dead? Just that he was a construction worker from Chicago, that they were young, that he died in an accident before I was born." Marcus paused. "She would get this look whenever I asked sad, but something else too. I stopped asking eventually." Harrison opened his desk drawer and removed a small key. He walked to a bookshelf across the office and unlocked a hidden panel, revealing a small safe. From it, he withdrew a battered leather journal. "Angela gave me this the last time I saw her," he said, returning to the desk. "Asked me to keep it safe, said if anything ever happened to her, I should read it." He placed it on the desk between them. "I never did, couldn't bring myself to." Marcus stared at the journal but didn't reach for it. "I think," Harrison said carefully, "that this belongs to you now." "Did you know?" Marcus asked, his voice suddenly tense. "Did you know about me?" Harrison shook his head. "Number Angela and I agreed to make a clean break. No contact. It was the investor's condition for backing my company. At the time, it seemed like the only choice." "Some choice," Marcus said bitterly. "I was 25 with a chance to build something significant, something that could employ thousands, that could change lives." Harrison's voice took on a defensive edge. "It was 1988. A black man getting that kind of opportunity was rare. I had to think bigger than just myself. And my mother understood that?" "She said she did." Harrison looked down at his hands. "She always understood more than I did." Marcus finally reached for the journal, feeling the worn leather beneath his fingers. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to an armchair in the corner of the office. Harrison nodded, and Marcus took a seat, opening the journal carefully. The pages were filled with his mother's familiar handwriting. He skimmed until certain entries caught his eye, then read more carefully. April 15, 1988, Harrison got the funding today. $2 million to launch Townsend Tech properly. I've never seen him so excited. Mr. Reynolds has some conditions, though. Harrison didn't want to tell me what they all were, but I could see it in his eyes. Something's wrong. April 30, 1988, it's over. Harrison explained everything. Reynolds doesn't want his new tech genius dating the help, as he put it, especially not black help. Said it would make investors nervous. Harrison argued, but the funding agreement gives Reynolds veto power over company decisions for the first 3 years. He threatened to pull all funding if H didn't end things with me. I told H he had to take the deal. This is his dream. I won't be the reason it dies. June 18, 1988, the test was positive. I'm pregnant. I haven't told Harrison. I can't. His company is taking off already. Reynolds watches him like a hawk. If he knew about the baby, he'd try to do the right thing and it would cost him everything he's worked for. I can't do that to him. I've made my decision. I'm moving to Chicago next month. My cousin Jeanette has a spare room. I'll tell everyone the father was someone I met there. It's better this way. Marcus looked up from the journal to find Harrison watching him intently. She never told me, Harrison said, his voice rough with emotion. She never gave me the choice. She made the choice for both of you, Marcus said, still trying to process what he was reading. For all three of us, Harrison corrected. She chose to raise you alone rather than risk my company. My God. He ran a hand over his face. Angela always was the strongest person I knew. Marcus continued reading, flipping through pages that detailed his mother's life in Chicago, her return to Detroit when Marcus was 5, her struggles as a single mother, and her fierce determination to give her son every opportunity. October 12, 1997 saw Harrison on the cover of Business Week Today. The new face of technology, they called him. His company is worth over $100 million now. I was right to let him go. Marcus asked about his father again today. I told him the same story. Someday when he's old enough to understand, I'll tell him the truth, when it can't hurt Harrison anymore. Marcus closed the journal, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. She never told me, he said quietly. She was waiting for the right time and then she got sick and... Harrison stood and walked around his desk, tentatively approaching Marcus. May I? He asked, gesturing to the journal. Marcus handed it over, watching as Harrison carefully turned the pages, occasionally pausing to read an entry, his expression growing more pained with each page. She sent me a card every year on my birthday, Harrison said suddenly. No return address, no message, just a blank card with a pressed flower inside. Lilacs, they were her favorite. I know, Marcus said. Our apartment always had lilacs in the spring. She'd walk 3 miles to Eastern Market just to buy them fresh. Harrison smiled faintly. She would. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. Marcus finally broke it. I didn't come here for money, he said firmly. I want you to know that. I just wanted to know the truth. Harrison nodded slowly. I believe you, he hesitated, then added, but if you are who I think you are, who this journal suggests you are, then certain things would be owed to you. Marcus stiffened. I don't want charity. It wouldn't be charity, Harrison replied. It would be inheritance, legacy, responsibility. He sighed heavily. I need to know for certain, Marcus. Would you consent to a DNA test? Marcus hadn't expected this. Why, so you can prove I'm lying? No, Harrison said, so I can prove to my board of directors and to the world that I'm not lying when I acknowledge you as my son. The words hung in the air between them, electrifying the space. You would do that? Marcus asked, disbelief evident in his voice. The test confirms what I already suspect. Yes. Harrison returned to his seat behind the desk. I've spent my life building something significant, Marcus, creating technology that has changed the world. But I've done it alone, no children, no heir to what I've built. He gestured around him. Townsend Enterprises employs over 5,000 people. We have offices in 12 countries. Our charitable foundation has built schools, funded scholarships, revitalized neighborhoods right here in Detroit. I know about your foundation, Marcus said. My middle school had a Townsend computer lab. Harrison smiled slightly. Good, that's good. He leaned forward. But none of that matters if there's no one to carry it forward, no one who understands why it was built in the first place. And you think that could be me? Marcus couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. I'm a high school dropout who lives on the streets. You're Angela's son, Harrison replied simply. And if these dates are correct, you're my son too. Everything else can be addressed. Marcus stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. From this height, Detroit looked pristine, its troubles invisible, its future promising. The reality on the ground was different. He knew every hard corner of this city, had slept in its shelters and alleyways, had scrounged in its dumpsters and picked from its pockets. What would you want from me? He asked without turning around. First, to finish your education, Harrison said firmly. Second, to learn this business from the ground up if you're interested. If not, to find what does interest you and pursue that with my support. And if the test says I'm not your son, Harrison was quiet for so long that Marcus turned to look at him. Then I would still owe you something, Harrison finally said. For bringing Angela back into my life, even if just through memory, for making me face the choice I made all those years ago. Marcus nodded slowly, processing this. All right, he said. I'll take the test. 3 days later, Marcus sat in the same office, facing Harrison across the same desk. The DNA test results lay in a sealed envelope between them. The past 72 hours had been surreal. Harrison had installed Marcus in a guest suite at the Westin Hotel downtown, insisting it was safer than the streets while they awaited the results. Marcus had been given new clothes, meals whenever he wanted them, and access to a hotel room larger than any apartment he'd ever lived in. He'd spent hours in the massive bathtub, letting years of tension melt away, and slept in a king-sized bed that made him feel simultaneously like royalty and an imposter. Now, showered, well-fed, and properly dressed for perhaps the first time in years, Marcus waited as Harrison picked up the envelope. "Before I open this," the older man said, "I want you to know something. These results don't change who you are, they don't define your worth." "Just whether or not I'm worth hundreds of millions," Marcus replied with an attempt at humor that fell flat. Harrison's expression remained serious. "Money complicates more than it simplifies, Marcus. Trust me on that." He opened the envelope carefully, removed the single sheet of paper inside, and read silently. His face revealed nothing as his eyes moved across the page. Finally, he set the paper down and looked directly at Marcus. "The probability of paternity is 99.9998%, he said quietly. "You are my son." Marcus had thought he was prepared for either outcome, but hearing the words spoken aloud hit him with unexpected force. He felt a confusing rush of emotions, validation, anger, grief, relief, all tangled together. "So what now?" asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Harrison took a deep breath. "Now we have decisions to make, both of us." He stood and walked to a sideboard where a pitcher of water and glasses waited. He poured 2 glasses, handed one to Marcus, and returned to his seat. "I won't pretend this isn't complicated," Harrison continued. "You're 17, legally still a minor. There are questions about guardianship, about your education, about how and when to make this public." He paused. "But those are logistics. The real question is, what do you want, Marcus?" Marcus stared at the water glass in his hand. "I don't know," he admitted. 2 weeks ago, I was just trying to survive until my next meal. Now." He gestured vaguely at the office around them. "It's overwhelming," Harrison acknowledged. "I understand that, so let's start smaller. Do you want to finish high school?" Marcus nodded. "I was a good student before everything happened. I liked school." "Good, that's a start." "Do you have any particular interests? Things you enjoyed studying?" "Computers," Marcus said without hesitation. "I'm good with them. The public library lets you use theirs for an hour a day. I taught myself some coding, HTML, JavaScript, some Python." Harrison couldn't hide his surprise or his pleasure. "Like father, like son," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. "I started with BASIC and Pascal back in the day, but the principle is the same." Marcus felt an unexpected warmth at the comparison. "My mom always made sure we had a computer at home, even when we could barely make rent. She said it was important for my future." "She was right," Harrison said softly. "She usually was." A comfortable silence fell between them. For the first time, the tension in the room had eased somewhat. "I don't expect to just walk in and be part of your life," Marcus finally said. "I understand this is a shock for you too." Harrison considered this. I think we both need time to adjust, but I don't want to waste any more time either." He seemed to come to a decision. "I have a proposal. There's a penthouse apartment in my building downtown. It's a corporate property we keep for visiting executives. You could stay there while you finish high school. I'd arrange for a private tutor to help you catch up, get your GED, prepare for college if that's what you want." "And what would I owe you?" Marcus asked warily. "Time," Harrison replied. "Dinner once a week, a willingness to learn about the company even if you ultimately decide it's not for you, and honesty always." "What about the public announcement, the heir to the Townsend fortune found on the streets?" Marcus couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. "We handle that carefully and on our timeline," Harrison said firmly. "You're a minor. Your privacy is protected by law. We can wait until you're ready, until we've had time to build a relationship first." Marcus nodded slowly. "And what do I call you?" Harrison looked startled by the question. I hadn't thought about that. Mr. Townsend seems weird now, but I'm not ready for the other thing." "Harrison is fine," the older man said gently. "We have time to figure out the rest." 4 months later, a car pulled up outside the Children's Hospital of Detroit. Harrison Townsend emerged from the back seat, straightened his tie, and turned to extend a hand to the young man who followed him. Marcus Townsend, the name change had been finalized the previous month, adjusted the jacket of his new suit and stood beside his father. At 18, he now carried himself with confidence, his former street-hardened wariness transformed into something more measured. He still possessed the sharp situational awareness that had kept him alive for years, but it was now channeled into a keen observational intelligence that served him well in his new life. "Ready?" Harrison asked. Marcus nodded. "As I'll ever be." Together, they walked into the hospital's main entrance where a small crowd of staff, patients, and media waited. Today marked the official announcement of the Townsend Foundation's $50 million donation to expand the hospital's oncology wing, and the first public appearance of Harrison Townsend's newly acknowledged son. The months since their reunion had been intense. Marcus had worked with tutors for 8 hours a day, determined to earn his GED and prepare for college. Harrison had arranged for therapy, understanding that the trauma of homelessness and loss required professional support. They had dined together not just once a week as originally proposed, but nearly every evening, slowly building a relationship, sharing stories, discovering their similarities and respecting their differences. There had been difficult moments. Marcus's anger would sometimes surface anger at the years lost, at the hardship he had endured while his father lived in luxury. Harrison had his own struggles, grappling with guilt and with the realization of how deeply his choices had affected others. But there had also been moments of connection that surprised them both. Harrison discovered that Marcus shared not only his aptitude for technology, but his dry sense of humor and his love of jazz. Marcus found himself adopting his father's methodical approach to problem-solving and his habit of reading multiple newspapers each morning. As they approached the podium set up in the hospital lobby, Harrison placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Remember," he said quietly, "you don't have to say anything if you don't want to." Marcus nodded, but they both knew he would speak. They had prepared for this moment carefully, deciding together how much of their story to share. Harrison stepped to the microphone, thanked the hospital administrators and staff, and spoke about the importance of the oncology wing expansion. Then his tone changed, becoming more personal. "Many of you have noticed that I'm not alone today," he said, gesturing to Marcus. "Earlier this year, I received an unexpected blessing. I discovered that I have a son." A murmur went through the crowd. "His mother was the love of my life, though circumstances separated us before I knew she was expecting our child. Angela Davis Johnson raised our son alone, instilling in him her strength, her intelligence, and her remarkable character. When she passed away from breast cancer 5 years ago, Marcus faced challenges no child should face alone." Harrison paused, visibly emotional. "Today's donation honors Angela's memory and recognizes the critical importance of cancer treatment and research, but it also marks the beginning of a new chapter for the Townsend family and foundation." He turned to Marcus. "Would you like to say a few words?" Marcus stepped forward, cleared his throat, and faced the crowd. "Thank you for being here today. My mother would be overwhelmed by this tribute. She was a private person who never sought recognition, but she believed deeply in helping others." He paused, gathering himself. "When she became ill, this hospital provided extraordinary care during her final months. The doctors and nurses here became like family to us." He glanced at Harrison, then continued. "My journey to this podium has been unusual. After my mother's death, I experienced homelessness and hardship that opened my eyes to the struggles many in our city face daily. Those experiences shape how I see the world and will inform my involvement with the Townsend Foundation moving forward." Marcus straightened his shoulders. "I'm committed to honoring both my parents' legacies, my mother's compassion and resilience, and my father's vision and determination. Together, we hope to create opportunities for those who, like I once was, need just one chance to change their lives." The press conference continued with questions, most of which were respectfully focused on the donation rather than the personal story. When it concluded, Harrison and Marcus walked together through the hospital to visit the oncology wing where Angela had spent her final days. Quiet moments standing by the window where she had often sat watching the city below, Harrison placed an arm around his son's shoulders. "She would be proud of you," he said softly. "So proud." Marcus nodded, emotions too complex for words rising in his throat. "I'm proud of you too," Harrison added. "More than I can say." Marcus turned to his father. "I've been thinking about college," he said. "MIT has that program in computational biology combining computer science with medical research." Harrison smiled, aiming to solve the big problems. "Someone once told me I should think bigger than just myself," Marcus replied, a hint of his old challenge in his voice, but softened now with understanding. "Wise advice," Harrison acknowledged with a quiet laugh. "Your mother's, I assume." "Yours, actually," Marcus corrected him. "The day we met." Harrison's expression grew serious. "We can't change the past, Marcus. The choices I made led us here," Marcus finished for him. "My mother made her choices too. She chose to protect your dream, to raise me with her values, to keep the door open for this moment, even if she didn't live to see it." Harrison nodded, too moved to speak. Together, they looked out over Detroit, a city of struggle and resilience, of history and possibility. Father and son, once strangers, now connected not just by DNA, but by a shared vision and growing affection. Ready to go home? Harrison asked finally. Marcus smiled. Yeah. Home sounds good. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments.